the battery dies and then I'm up a creek. Still, I prefer to let it sleep. I just, tell the in-laws, you want us to come? That means when I arrive, you're on kid duty. Because I'm going to bed. I call this UAC meeting to order. Please join me in the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. At this time, we will take in the comments from the public. Nothing, Jerry?
Do you have a quorum?
Of course. There's 3 of us.
How many's on the commission?
60%.
Thank you.
No problem. Before requesting to approve the consent agenda, I already know that I would like to pull item number 2 off of the consent agenda for discussion. So, does any other board member want to pull item number 1 off the consent agenda? If not, then I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
So, all in favor?
Aye.
Consent agenda passes. The removed item number 2, the reason I wanted to pull it off is that it's a recommendation for the KMGA Board of Directors. We've had to do this many times. The thing I wanted to say is that we're looking to appoint Crevens to the alternate director, but we already have Dave Frank as the alternate director.
Right.
So my question was, should we be replacing the director since Lee is not on the UAC anymore instead, and since Crevens is the lead electrical engineer, he would be better suited to be the director instead of the alternate. And then we could reaffirm Dave for someone else if necessary for the position that just expired. That's kind of what I was thinking, because I know Lee is on there for another year, but since he's a council member and busy with other things, I thought it might be more advantageous to the staff to have our lead electrical engineer be the primary contact. That's kind of what I was thinking there. But I realized that the reason this was done was because Dave Frank's term just expired. So we have to address that no matter what. I didn't know if we wanted to do 2 in 1 here.
My understanding was that that Lee was gonna be for another year, so we have to wait for 1 year in order to designate that position.
So we're not supposed to change that position in the meantime.
Right.
Okay.
That's my understanding.
Okay. Then,
And the reason I chose John Crevens is because as a alternate, has to be a person that can make a decision representing the city. And John is an exempt employee, Dave is not, so that was my recommendation to put John instead of Dave Frank.
well, I don't have a problem with the recommendation, and then we can revisit Mr. Moore at some point.
You can send it alternate.
Right, yeah, we don't have to send the director. I just figured at this point, it's kind of like we have 1 out of the 2 on paper regardless, instead of 2 on that. So,
I'm good with it.
anybody else have any issues, questions, comments? Then I would entertain a motion to accept that agenda item as it was originally stated.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
passes unanimously. New business item number 1.
Number 1, we have consider a recommendation to the City Council to award a supply and installation supervision contract for replacement of the 161 kV circuit breaker. This is part of the substation number 1 improvement project, CIP project number 14 ELE01. Just as a brief background, the first phase was to replace the transformer. The transformer was awarded to ABB back in March of this year, and it should be delivered by early first quarter of next year. The second phase involved replacing the 161 kV circuit breaker. So far, we have awarded the engineering and for the replacement and the specs to Sega. That was done on May 18th. And that will take care of the second phase. And the third phase is the removal and disposal of the existing breaker and transformer. As of today, KMU has accepted they will be removing the transformer. They'll be draining the transformer, taking the oil in the transformer. So we originally had $165,000, so we may be saving those monies hopefully hopefully next year.
Right.
So there's a pretty good savings there. So going back to the 161 kV circuit breaker, Sega was retained to prepare the specifications and bid documents for the supply and installation of the replacement 161 kV circuit breaker. 3 bids were received in the Sega office July 30th, 2015. The first bid was by HIB, which is Hitachi. Hitachi's manufactured the breaker for $58,196. Then we got Alstom, $60,790, and ABB came with $77,790. Good to know that the bid from Hitachi HVB did not include the field service engineer for the installation. So staff reviewed the 3 proposals and recommended going with Alstom for $60,790, and also is also concurs with the recommendation given by Sega. So we recommend. We'd like to request the UAC to approve a recommendation to the City Council to award supply and installation supervision contract to Alstom in the amount of $60,790 for the replacement of 161 kV circuit breaker at substation number 1.
In the letter from Sega, it had said that Alstom was the one that didn't include the field service representative. Am I missing something, or is that a misprint on here?
I think it's the Alstom included a field service engineer for the supervision, but did not include the actual installation. That's the same with ABB and HIB did not, in the quote, they did not include the field service engineer for the supervision. None of the 3 included the actual installation of the breaker. That's going to be done in-house with distribution crew.
It looks like if you went with HVB, you'd be spending at least $5,300 on installation for the oversight installation bid, which then puts Alstom as well as. And it's always nice to have our recommendation of staff coincide with SEGA's as well, since we asked them for their opinion.
Right.
Any further discussion? I entertain a motion.
Okay. I move to accept the second proposal as well as the city on going with Alstom for the bid of $60,790.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. New business item number 2.
Consider a recommendation to the city council to award a supply service contract to Palmer Johnson to inspect and rebuild. I think that's wrong. You have the wrong PowerPoint presentation. Well, consider a recommendation to the city council to award a supply installation contract to replace 2 12.47 kV circuit breakers at substation number 1. CIP project 14 ELE 02. The substation number 1 improvement project, which was split in 2, the 161 transformer and circuit breaker, and then the second part is the 12.47 breakers and relay protection. Includes improvement and upgrades to the substation protective relays and breaker system that were begun during the repairs necessitated by the September 2013 short circuit and fire. The original project consisted on replacing the protective relays, upgrading the generator protective relays, improving the transmission line protective system for a total of $250,000. Then, after a close analysis of the situation, we identified that the circuit breaker needed to be replaced at 12.47. We have they needed to be replaced in addition to upgrading the relay protection. Following a previous Utility Advisory Commission recommendation, the council awarded the contract for engineering service for the 14.47 circuit breaker replacement and controls to Lutz, Daly, and Brain in the amount of $28,300 on May 18th, 2015. The way our updated fixed and estimated project cost is as follows. We have $78,300 for the distribution feeder breaker and protective relay, of which we have a contract to supply the feeder breakers pending approval of $23,371. Then the contract to install the feeder breaker for $17,629. And the engineering service for the breaker replacement, which was awarded in May 18th to LD&B for $28,300. 2 meetings ago, the UAC approved the recommendation to award the engineering service for the protective relay installation for the generators to LDBB for $3,300,900. And we have a balance of $16,100 for the installation. As of right now, the installation of the feeder breakers is not part of the, is not including the supply, and since they're pretty small breakers, it'll be more than likely removed and installed by the distribution or the generation staff. So we can save some money there. Then on July 9th, 2015, Lutz, Daly, and Brain sent bid documents to 3 bidders. CPM, which represents Siemens, Lynn Elliott Company, which represents G&W, and Evans, Lipka & Associates, represents Cooper. Upon request on July 17th, 2015, a bid set was sent to the fourth bidder, MBA Power of Quebec, also representing GNW. On August 7, 2015, at 2 p.m., 2 bids were opened. One bid was received after the deadline, so that was not open. It was returned to the bidder. The bid proposals are summarized below. We have CBM, which is Siemens, for $32,371. Evans, Leap and Associates, they didn't send a bid. Lynn Elliott, representing GNW, bid $42,180. And MBA Power of Quebec did not meet the deadline, so the bid was returned as previously mentioned. Staff reviewed the 2 proposals and agreed with the LD&B recommendation to award the supply contract breaker to Siemens in the amount of $32,371 for replacing the 2 12.47 kV circuit breakers. Staff recommendation is to approve a recommendation to the City Council to award a supply contract to Siemens in the amount of $32,371 to replace the 2 12.47 kV circuit breakers of Substation 1 as part of the CIP Project 14 ELE 02.
Any discussion?
Just more fair, yeah. So I have no discussion with this.
One question I had was, what's the typical lifetime of those breakers that, since they were put in '87? Are we on borrowed time already, or we're getting real close? What kind of time frame should we be looking at for that breaker?
My experience, a breaker can last anywhere between 25 to 30 years.
So we're coming up on it regardless. 30 years would be 2017. So the fact that we had this built in and it was, recommended that we do it upon further inspection, we're just getting ahead of the curve, really.
Right.
And it's a good time to do it while we're in there with everything else.
Yeah, my opinion is that doesn't make any sense upgrading your relay protection and having the old equipment. So might as well replace the equipment, the feeders, and install the new protective relays.
Okay.
That's improving reliability.
Right.
Correct.
No further discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
I make a motion to approve the recommendation City Council award supply contract to Siemens amount of $32,371 to replace 2 1247 circuit breakers at substation number 1.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Discussion items.
On the electric generation, we've reviewed the contract with Sega. Johnson Palmer for the inspection rebuild of torque converter number 2 on GT number 2. Then also we're reviewing the Novatec for the SCADA. And there's one more, Pro Energy. We reviewed the Pro Energy contract for the service of removing the torque converter, shipping it to Palmer Johnson, and installing it and aligning it. Those 3 contracts has been sent to the city administrator for signature. So we're moving right along on those projects. And we still work on the SCADA. The city had a new contract, like a master contract. So we're using that contract, and that creates a lot of discussion with the contractors. So every contract has to be tailored to the negotiations, and then there's a lot of conversation between legal and the legal of the contractor, so it's taking some time. But the idea is to have a single contract that we can use for various services and supplies contracts. So right now, we had three that they have been sent for signatures. So we're moving right along with those contracts. What else? On distribution, we completed rebuilding 480 feet of single-phase overhead line and installing 4 new poles and 2 transformers on 200 block of North Cherry Street. All the work was done by our distribution crew. Then I don't know if you remember this project, the Pioneer Feeder, Ridge Feeder Project. We ordered close to 7,000 feet of cable. So far, we have received 4,800 feet of 750 cable, and the 3,990 feet was rejected because it didn't pass the test. So the manufacturer is Oconite, so we have requested to expedite the remaining of the cable. But we have installed the electric pedestals at Celebration Park, and just waiting for the cable so we can run the cable.
Is that pushing us pretty far behind on that schedule?
I think we should be done by next week,
Okay.
if we get the cable in time. Water. On water, we have a project which I mentioned last meeting. Every year, we have 2 settling ponds, and every year we clean one pond and we clean the other pond the following year. So this year, we need to clean the east side settling pond. It's for about $48,000. We do the bid every year, so next year, what we'll try to do is get a 3 to 4 year contract, so we don't have to do through the process of bidding for the cleanup every year, and save us some time, and hopefully get a better price for the 3-4 years contract. And on the wastewater side, we last meeting, the UAC approved a recommendation to replace the lift station on Bulls Creek. It's about 30 years old, and we try to find different pumps, but you have to actually redesign the lift station. So the best approach was to buy a exact replacement. That was about $34,000. So the lift station has been ordered, and it should be here within the next 30 to 40 days. And that's all I have for projects updates.
Questions from the board?
No, did we get the reliability report? That was last month, or last meeting, is it good then?
Yeah, normally
Every
about
quarter?
a quarter, once a quarter, right?
Quarter, yeah.
Reliability reports, the outage report.
Yeah, that's
About a quarterly, yeah.
So it'll be presented next meeting, October.
Okay. I don't have anything else.
There's nothing else. Entertained a motion for adjournment.
Move that we adjourn.
All in favor? Aye. Being adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Royals started at 7:30.
Oh, we're behind.
Probably in the second inning.
Anybody get chicken pox today?
Oh, really?
That's what I heard.
Okay,
Nobody knew.
that's good.
My granddaughter told me that the 2 that had it were not born in the United States,
They weren't,
so they probably weren't vaccinated when they were.
right, and who was it, Fontes, maybe? One of them just, went through the citizenship process and got vaccinated, but had only had the vaccinations for 10 days, so there's still a chance that
Yeah.
he could catch it. So who knows?